This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners of this podcast can save 30% off the first year of an annual subscription by going and visiting theathletic.com/DSP. The Athletic has great writers. They're covering all the major Detroit sports teams. They're hiring writers left and right. Even this fall, they're going to cover Michigan and Michigan State football. Save 30% off. Become a subscriber. All the hosts here on the network, we definitely read The Athletic every single day. Go and visit theathletic.com/DSP to become a subscriber and save 30% off.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. I'm back in the building. It's your oh yeah. I'm lost my touch. It's me. It's Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. I took a week or so off, got my new job, and I've lost everything. John, the Doc Macaroon, he's sitting here with me. He's shaking his head. It's usually me shaking my head at him in disgust.
Seriously, you forgot how to podcast
and now
already?
He's shaking his head in disgust.
Give a man a week off, and you know what? That's funny. Shay also started his podcast, forgetting his stuff, because he also did a podcast previously to coming on and doing a podcast with us, and he wanted to shout out, and he wanted to say the name of the previous podcast that he was part of. That's okay. Look, you guys could all come in here and just flub your words day and night. It doesn't matter. If you follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, I told you I was kicking the walls down, and it eventually happened. If you don't know, I'll tease it, maybe for later in the show, but a major development has happened with the Detroit Sports Podcast Network in terms of our ability to cover a major Detroit sports team, and the door was opened a little bit wider. As you all know, I have an opportunity, being that I'm in private practice. There's a couple hours a day. If you want to know my schedule, usually 6 to 7 clients, and then I'm here in the office like 9 hours. So about 2 hours of my day are free, just to decompress, sleep, do podcasting, and email prominent people. So in those emails, you know, after 3 years of getting rejected or ignored, finally someone opened the door. And I knew it was going to happen because of the fact that you can kind of sense momentum building. To be honest, I could sense it. I mean, when you have athletes coming on the line, when you have members of the team that you want to cover being able to come on and have great interviews and things like that, when you have somebody who's working at a paper that's doing work with the Detroit Tigers, then there's opportunities to do more things. And it was great to get the email, and it was great to tag you guys in it. It was great to really take the next step, and we just keep it going. And that's what I like about this project is we really have no limits, and we can have a bunch of fun. And you came in after a great day of work. You have a new adventure going on, and you're doing great things, and you still show up here to the office. Look, even if you're half the broadcaster that you used to be, you're still better than me, so that's great. I'm enjoying the conversation.
You finally wore somebody down. You're like that one guy at the bar who just keeps hitting on the pretty girl, and you wore him down, and you took the bell of the ball home.
Yes, sir, baby. It's going to be good times ahead the remainder of 2018. I told you at the beginning of the year it was going to be a great 2018. Now halfway through, it's going to be amazing. But you know what's not amazing right now?
Are we saving this reveal, or because you didn't actually say it? I'm not, and I'm a little confused. I don't know if you're saving this for later in the podcast.
Yeah, I want to save it just a little bit later. People know.
Okay.
People know that follow us, but I'll save it a little bit later, maybe after the break. Let people listen to the first segment.
Okay.
So, you know what's not really great right now? Big Ten Media Days. Now, I know the media likes to get out there and talk to the coaches and things like that, but all that really happens is players go out there, the coaches go out there, and they kind of answer questions about last season, hopes for the future. Nothing good really comes out of it. And look what happened to Jim Harbaugh. He got trapped, and he made news because of the fact they asked him, what do you think about the playoff? And unfortunately, he made news by stating, and it was interesting to talk about because I took the stance that I think a lot of people are taking, is that he kind of came out and said that he's hoping that the field expands to 8 games or at the very least, if it gets to 8, then he wants it to even expand more and get to 16. And I think the other newsworthy part was he wants to do away with the conference title game. And people kind of looked at that and said, is it because of the fact your team has not gotten there? Do you want to expand the college football playoff to 16 so that your squad can have an easier chance? Because Michigan's always rated in the top 25. They have an easier path. If, you struggle and your team is like at 3 or 4 losses, you might still have a chance to make it to the playoff. What'd you make of that kind of news?
So I don't find myself often siding or agreeing with Jim Harbaugh. And part of me wants to completely disagree with him because I agree with the whole fact that it sounds like he's just trying to make it easier for himself. But, I think ultimately this is what we really want. We do want to see an expanded field in college football for the playoffs.
No.
You're fine
I love
with
it.
4.
I am fine. Look, what the college football playoff has provided is, how special it was for Michigan State to get there, how hard, how meaningful it is, and it makes the regular season super important to watch. Because look, let's say, for example, Michigan goes and they go like 8-4 in the regular season. There's a chance they could still be in the top 16 depending on when they get those wins. When you lose a game, that first game versus Notre Dame in a 4 playoff team system is huge. There's so much buildup to a regular season game that every single game is massive. It makes it so much better to watch. I feel like in the 4-team system, everything is debatable. We talk about it nonstop from the first time the first couple polls are released. And I say to myself, wow, Michigan State got there. They're one of the teams from the Big Ten that were able to fight their way through, get to, how special it was? I don't know if you remember.
It's debatable, but then
where were you when Michigan State defeated Iowa? Do you remember that game?
I do. I remember watching the game. I remember LJ Scott reaching across the goal line with the ball. Yes, I remember that. It was great. It was amazing.
You know how special it felt to get there to qualify because you knew they were going to be in the college football playoff?
I get that. But I think ultimately the goal has always been you want to see more. You want to see more. You say these 4 games are meaningful. And you talk like there's not going to be debate anymore. If it does expand to 8 or 16, there's going to be debate. I think the biggest thing that this 4-team format has going against it is that you have had teams who really legitimately have had a chance and should have been in a playoff, and they've been ousted. You look at the year that Ohio State ran the table. Now, granted, they got into the playoffs as the number 4, and then went on to go and win the national championship. But there were teams that were just outside who you would think they were more deserving by the games that they won. And I think the one thing you do have to do is you have to make sure if you do expand it is you have to have you have to get these teams right. I don't want to see like a number, like a 3rd rated in their conference, Michigan, or just because they're Michigan in the playoff scenario. These need to be like the best 8 or the best 16, regardless of what conference they are. I think it's going to be difficult because they've always had problems figuring this out and figuring out who is the best team and what wins matter at what time in the season. So I think that's where they want to go. I think that's where they should go with 8 games and 16 games. I do still think it's funny, though, that Jim Harbaugh is calling for all this, and he's saying to do away with conference championships because he can't do it.
That's the part that I think Michigan fans need to really seriously look at, is that I think that it would mean much more for the program if they were able to get it in a system where there was only 4 teams. You know how hard it would be to kind of go through Ohio State, Michigan State, win the Big Ten title game? It's an amazing feeling, and it's one where you want to try and absolutely shoot for that. But I do sense that Jim Harbaugh realizes that, you know how hard it is to go through the Big Ten and not lose a game or only lose one and then get to a conference title game and then battle? See, the reason why I don't want any more games is really simple. These teams right now, if you remember back in the day, college football would only be maybe 9, 10 games. Now it's steadily expanding to 12 in the regular season, a bowl game. Maybe if you're in the college playoff, you're going to play 2 more games. You're sometimes talking about 14 games in college. You want to add a couple more to that? And I say, no, I think that these athletes, you want to prolong their career. And I feel like by expanding playoff games and more games, then you're jeopardizing these athletes and exposing them to more risk, especially in these big-time contests where there's going to be hitting, there's going to be opportunities to get hurt. So I say, look, I think the season should be capped at 10 games in the regular season and 1 bowl game, 11, 12 max. And I just feel like by having more teams, I feel like it's anti-player and it's not a good look. And I feel like sticking with 4 has been amazing, but inevitably, when you look at the money aspect of it and everything falls back to money, eventually I do think that if there are 4 16-team super conferences and you want to go to 8, I could agree with that. If you say, look, let's have 4 16-team super conferences, the winners of those conferences get an automatic bid, and we take 4 at large, I could maybe, I'm willing to budge to go to 8, but that's it. 16's too much.
See, that's never going to happen. That would be an ideal, having the super conferences.
Yeah.
I just don't see that ever happening in the NCAA with the amount of money these leagues make. What I want to say too is that I think the tables would be turned if the shoe was on the opposite foot. If we were the ones who were constantly looking in, and Michigan was the team that had already been to the playoffs, that we're finally the ones who are the ones saying, hey, we did it. This is something special. And Michigan is the school now that's going, hey, we just can't get there. We want to get there too. So let's find a different way to get into this playoff. So I think both fan bases are just going to be, they're caught up. That as Spartan fans, we think that it's special, and we've already done it. And as Michigan fans, they haven't done it. They've constantly been looking on the outside, or they've been on the outside looking in, and they're trying to get in. So I don't know.
Ahead of the 2018 season, very important for both squads, Michigan and Michigan State, to have solid years, because Michigan State is coming off of a 10-win season. They want to establish themselves as a power. They want to continue to really reign supreme in the state of Michigan. The University of Michigan is really trying hard now in Jim Harbaugh's 4th season to gain that respect more and more, to continue the momentum rolling, to keep getting those recruits. They have a new quarterback. In your eyes, which squad, Michigan or Michigan State, whose season is more important? Who has to have the better year, Michigan or Michigan State? It's really tough because both squads are really, the rivalry is going full bore, and both teams need to have a really solid season. And right now, it's really interesting to kind of look at both sides and where they're headed. But which team do you think is absolutely needing a monster year?
I think it has to be Michigan, because I would say for Michigan State, the main thing that they have to go for is they can't have another 3-9 season. They can't just have another complete implosion of a year. If they go out and they win 8-9 games, it's going to be fine. Mark D'Antonio, he's going to come back. They're going to have another year. They're going to continue to do what they've been doing, which is win somewhere between 8 to 10, and sometimes maybe even more than that games. Whereas I think if Michigan comes out and they have an 8-win season, that's a failure of a season, and Jim Harbaugh's even on a hotter seat than the following season. So Jim Harbaugh needs to come out this year, and I don't know. I know some people will say differently, but I would really have to say that he's got to he probably needs to beat Michigan State and Ohio State and at least get to the Big Ten championship.
Oh, Indy.
That's what he needs to do.
Indy or bust.
Yeah, I would say he either needs to get to Indy or he has to beat Ohio State. I think it's one of those two. He needs one of those two to remove the focus that Michigan fans they have on him. That they've been expecting this since he came here, and he hasn't delivered on any of those.
I'm going to take a different approach. I think it's more important for Michigan State because of the fact that Michigan is still behind them. Logistically, logically, you realize that Mark D'Antonio in his tenure has had more success and has done bigger things, bigger games, bigger national spotlight. But when you have a 3-win year, it takes a lot of your stock away. It puts you in a really tough spot with recruiting. It puts you in a tough spot in terms of national perception, and it puts you in a tough spot in terms of your rival inching ever so close. And Michigan has a lot of guys coming back. They've kind of made some adjustments on offense. They brought in different assistants, and they got a guy that people are really high on in Shea Patterson. So if Michigan State falters, and should they lose to Michigan at home, should they falter, should they have a 7 or 8 win year, then the Michigan momentum will really be strong and will allow for Jim Harbaugh to even maybe continue to get those recruits that could help the University of Michigan. So for me,
you're saying that if Michigan has another 7 or 8 win year,
Michigan State, I'm saying that it's more important for Michigan State to continue to reign supreme as a predominant, strong football program over Michigan, because if State has a 7-win year and Michigan goes on to Indy and maybe, just maybe, creeps into the college football playoff, top 4 team, oh my God, the tidal wave will explode, and Jim Harbaugh, then his system will have proven to be effective. Then you could get more high-level recruits, because remember, it's a tipping point right now. Michigan State has done so well, but that 3-win season really brought them back down to earth. But you can always hold your head up high that they've defeated Michigan consistently. Now, should they lose at home to Michigan? Should Shea Patterson be a world beater? Should Michigan walk away from East Lansing with the victory and they have a better season? Then I do think the momentum that Michigan State has built up might be really withering away. So that's why it's important to continue to be ahead of them. Because right now, if you were to ask me, it's 55 Michigan State, 45 Michigan in terms of where they're at. And Michigan's getting ever so close with the dominant defense, maybe getting the quarterback that Jim Harbaugh wants to see. You have strong running backs. You have the ability to maybe make some better plays if the receivers get open and can do some things. So they're inching close, but I still give the edge to Michigan State. But I do think it's more important for them to have a better year, because I still think right now the Michigan fan base is riding on the fact that team patience, the majority of fans, look, they're the fans that are angry with where Michigan's at are loud. They're getting louder. But I do think by and large, the supporters are strong, and they say
that's ridiculous. You think Michigan fans are patient?
I think that the people that call radio stations and message us, maybe they're getting louder and louder, but by and large, Michigan fans thumps their chest and says, we're going to be great. Just I don't think yet that they have lost as much hope as you would maybe think.
Well, I think it doesn't matter what the players are doing on Michigan's field. All that matters is what Harbaugh's doing. And it's going to come down to Jim Harbaugh. I get that the players play on the field. And in most scenarios, I would say it's going to come to who's playing on the field. But what we've seen is that Jim Harbaugh can't get it done for his team. It's you look at what the Lions did with Jim Caldwell. I think we had a better team than what our record showed in previous seasons for the Lions. And I think you can pretty much blame Jim Caldwell for that, and his play calling and his whatever you want to call it for that. And I think Jim Harbaugh has that same type of thing about his coaching style, is that he constantly shoots himself in the foot. He wants to be the smartest guy in the room. You look at Shea Patterson was he was the number 1 recruit when he went to Ole Miss, could arguably be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And at Big Ten Media Days, he doesn't come out and flat out just go, yeah, Shea Patterson, he's my number 1 guy. He's going to be great. He's going to be All-American this year. He says, he's got to fight with everybody else. Serious? Are you serious?
So on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, the most interactive sports Twitter page in all of Metro Detroit, I threw out a tweet and said, Jim Harbaugh with quite the comments. In his version of a 16-team playoff, there would be no conference title game. Those dollars must not mean much. Hashtag it's a business. And so some people got in with some funny stuff. Bruce Sucher gets in. Harbaugh is a clown. David gets in. It's hard for U of M to understand the importance of the Big Ten championship game because they have never been there. Brandon Wallace, because he can't win one. Shay Norling, host of the Monday Mashup every single Monday on our network. I didn't even know he knew about the conference title game. And big-time DSP supporter Steve Chimenti. 16-team playoff would be great, but you have to remember College Football Playoff Committee won't let it happen. 8 teams seems more viable.
I agree with Steve. It's an 8-team playoff would be suitable because then you at least get all the conference champions in there. You give them a spot, and then you have what would it be 3 at-larges? And I think that would be a perfect scenario for the college football playoff system.
So you still think that after what I said, Michigan has to have the better year? It's more important for Michigan to have a better year.
I still believe, because I think Michigan State, D'Antonio coming back and having the season that he had last year, I think it restored faith. It could be, and I will be the first one to say that after that 3-win season, I put D'Antonio on the hot seat, and I thought it might be his time to go. And you couple that with the scandal that was going on with what was with the players on his team, and what he was able to do last year with the players, that they were young players, and now coming into this season with almost the same starting lineup, he's in a good position, and Spartan fans they've come to just expect this. Whereas I truly do believe a 8-win season for a Michigan team it's a tragedy.
You getting ready for college football? How excited are you?
I'm excited for football in general.
Training camp in the NFL is coming up.
I'm tired of baseball, and I'm tired of, NBA free agency. After LeBron got signed, it kind of just all went downhill. So
yeah, don't you get a sense there's more hope with the Lions, Michigan State in college than there is with the Pistons, Red Wings, and the Detroit Tigers? So people are starving for some different stories and things like that. So I do think that people are definitely ready for some football for the fall to get here. Right,
because it's you can only get so excited about Glenn Robinson III and the Tigers blowing another game. I'm excited about what the Red Wings are doing, but until we actually see the kids playing, it's hard to get really excited about it and to really talk about it on a podcast. So, football, it's coming, and you can have these lively debates about it.
Okay, stay with us. We definitely will talk some NFL football. We'll talk Lions, and we will reveal the breaking news that I teased earlier on in this podcast. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant, episode 162. Stay with us. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project back in September of 2013, we actually were in my basement. I'm not going to lie. We started this project in the basement of my house. And since then, we've recorded 1,000 podcasts. We've grown to the level of success where I have an office. I have the podcast equipment here in a Sterling Heights studio in a suite. So when I give out the address to people, it definitely makes them want to come. So when you have a great guest, you have to have a good host site. So when they want to share it with their friends, when you want to promote your brand, you have to have a good host site. All the hosts here on the network, Jason, Shay, Steve, Vito, Adam, all the hosts that do podcasts with us, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast.com.
Is this the Star Wars main theme?
Yes, it is. I love Star Wars. I've been wanting somebody to cover, and not either heavy metal or punk rock, but do something with Star Wars. And finally, I think these guys came out a year or two ago. They're called Galactic Empire, and they're cool. They dress up in the costumes, and they cover all the stuff in a heavy metal style. It's fun stuff.
Did you know that there's a Star Wars exhibit at the DIA?
I do. I do know that. I didn't go to see that.
Is it still going on? I don't know. I was
Maybe.
there. I was there on Sunday, and I saw it. Oh, my God. It was packed. Line out the door to see this exhibit. And it's pay, so obviously I went to the free section. A lot of good art. I got my culture on. I seen the Honus Wagner baseball card. I seen the This Is Baseball display. Are you poo-pooing the DIA, Jason?
I'm poo-pooing Honus Wagner.
It's a major baseball card, a major collector item.
Are you sure it's not Wagner? Dude, I'm holding out my hopes for 2020 when we're going to Disney World and we're going to see Star Wars land.
Oh, okay. Very good. There is a new DC movie I'm seeing. Is it Aquaman?
Yeah, the trailer came out at the San Diego Comic-Con. Was going on last week.
I know I saw Adam post.
I actually didn't see the Aquaman trailer.
You didn't see it? Not yet. Adam was posting with his wife. They were saying that a lot of people are skeptical, but they saw the trailer, they liked it, but they're skeptical because they don't want DC to get their hands on something and ruin it. What are the odds that it's going to be good, you think?
I think there's a 20% chance that Aquaman's any good. Because
Gotcha.
I actually just recently, because I've been kind of slow on watching all those. Because Marvel, they do a fantastic job. I don't think they've really done anything wrong since Iron Man. And I've watched the Superman and the Batman versus Superman, which was okay, but it was kind of eh. So I finally broke down and watched Justice League, and everyone poo-pooed it, and I wasn't sure. I wanted to at least give it a chance, and I watched it, and it was trash. It was a bad movie. Like, it was essentially Avengers, but a awful version of it. Like, Ben Affleck was a very stiff and awful acted Tony Stark, and I liked the Wonder Woman movie, but the girl who played Wonder Woman in Justice League, like, she just completely overacted. And Aquaman and Flash were okay, and I thought they did a horrible job with Cyborg. And I know we're going off on a complete tangent about superhero movies, but whatever. This is our podcast.
No, exactly. It's cool. No, I know you like it. People do like it, and I know I saw Adam post it, and yeah, I understand greatly that Marvel is way ahead. They've put out a lot of movies that people love and revere, and DC is just a little bit behind right now. So, hey.
I think it's going to be, I'd say it's impossible for them to ever catch up or to get where Marvel is. It's too far. Like, even if they did, it would just essentially be a copy of Marvel.
Oh, great segue right ahead. So we're like the Marvel of the podcasting world. You know why? We're greatly far ahead of everybody else. And the breaking news is, if you don't know, I mean, I posted it all over. And look, I'm not going to apologize for the way I did it. I took a breaking news picture and put it all over Instagram, Twitter, my Facebook. Got a lot of great response. A lot of people, I think even someone related to you with your last name, maybe your mom or someone related to you.
Probably.
Yep, she congratulated us because of the fact that the Detroit Tigers have opened the door for Vito and myself to go to Comerica Park in the press box when available, when there's space, to go down there and cover the Tigers. Meaning, and I shared a laugh with my sister, look, if Boston's in town, which was the initial credential I'd asked for, that was the first this year, because I was telling Vito, look, we're getting big guests. We're doing good numbers on your podcast. Jim Leland's been on. We're getting national guests. We're getting big-time numbers here for your show. You're a baseball guy. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility to reopen the door, because we've tried a couple of years to get a credential with no real reply, even not even a yes, not even a no. So I reached out to the director of media relations and said, look, well, to give a backstory, I actually reached out to the Houston Astros media guy and said, look, I want to interview Justin Verlander on my podcast. And I put a picture if you follow along. And he said, look, we're not doing phone interviews. We're trying to catch up on the face-to-face interviews. So I'm like, okay, I waited a week and I emailed him again. And I said, look, you know, he's about to pitch versus the Tigers. How about we do a 5-question Q&A? He's like, look, man, we're very busy. How about this? He said, if you can get credentials with your people, then in September when he comes, maybe we'll arrange a one-on-one. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the onus of this started with the Houston Astros guy, who was super kind and replied like within 4 hours. So I said, you know what, let's try it again. Why not? So I emailed, and on Saturday, man, I almost fell out of my chair because they said, sure, apply, and we'll let you in on a game-by-game basis, meaning that when the Yankees are in town or Boston, when there's like 50 ESPN people here, when there's big-time stuff, you know, you might have to get into the back of the line.
But no, you may never know. It would be one thing if the Tigers were good and these teams were coming into town.
Yeah.
You might actually have a good shot.
Yeah, it almost guarantees that like on a Wednesday 1 o'clock situation or a Thursday afternoon, there's a strong chance I can get into the press box and be actually a Detroit Tigers reporter for the network. And
congratulations.
Yes, sir, Jason. It's good stuff. Bigger things ahead for the network, bigger numbers, always great. And I'm glad to have you guys along for the ride, because I told you, I'm kicking the door down. I'm not coming in lightly. I'm not coming in from the side. I'm coming in straight for the door, and I'm coming to blast it open. I'm a podcaster, and I'm not affiliated with anybody. But obviously, there's been people that have helped me along the way because I asked a lot of questions, and it worked out. So bigger coverage ahead, and we're going to keep doing it. We're not going anywhere. This office is going to be here for a while. We're going to podcast because we're crazy enough to talk sports. You had a shift at work. I had a shift at work, and we're doing it because we love talking sports, and we would be doing this anyway over a beer. I'd invite you and say, hey, take me out for some beers and talk to me about sports.
Oh, I think it would be the other way around. I think you're going to take me out for the beers.
Yeah, it's possible because we might have another celebration ahead. We got celebrations coming up for some of the relationships that we got, so it's going to be a fun summer for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And I do believe it's going to be a fun fall for the Detroit Lions. Starting to get hope again, like everyone said, but I think I had the Lions around 9-7, 10-6. But here's the part that's challenging in talking about the Detroit Lions. I'm not sure 9-7 is going to win it this year. I feel like when we look at the Chicago Bears and what they've done with Trubisky and kind of making their improvements, and you look at Green Bay and Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, what I tell you, if Minnesota got Kirk Cousins to be their starting quarterback, that's a wrap. I don't care what the Lions do. And I still stick by that. I own that statement that Kirk Cousins is going to be a difference maker. He's going to be somebody with something to prove.
That statement. I don't want it.
I own that statement, and I do believe that maybe 9, maybe even 10 wins might not be enough for the Detroit Lions to make a move. But right now, people are kind of looking at their flaws, looking at some of the lack of defensive depth. They're looking at what's really going to happen with that running game. Can they stay healthy enough to make noise? It's a first-year head coach who's going to be trying to, get his players in and teach them a new system, and that schedule is daunting. I mean, a lot of people have the Lions with 1 win out of their first 5. So it's interesting where, obviously, with the Lions, the only word we can use is cautiously optimistic, but I'm a little bit nervous when we look at it, and the thing I want to talk to you about is, which team do you think is the cream of the crop in the NFC North right now?
I guess when you put it that way, I know when we were talking about the show before, you say who do you like? What's the team that you like coming out of the NFC North, and who do you think is going to be the biggest challenge? And when you pose it, who out of all of them, who is the best right now? I think you have to go to Minnesota. There are things that I like about the other 2 teams. I think the Chicago Bears, what they've done this offseason, I think that offense is going to be much improved. Mitchell Trubisky gets another year. I think their running back situation is pretty decent with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. They went out and they got Allen Robinson. They got Taylor Gabriel, wide receiver. They got a pass catching tight end and Trey Burton. So the Bears are going to be looking good. You can never really ever count out the Packers. I'm not sure what they did on defense. That's always going to be their big thing is, can they ever fix anything on defense? But you can't ever count out a Green Bay team that's led by Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, before he got hurt, was on his way to another NFL MVP season last year. So, but when you look right now, what team is going to be the best team in the NFC North? As much as I really want to say that it's the Lions, I can't go with my heart. I got to go with my head, and it's the Minnesota Vikings.
100%. Right on, Jason. Ding, ding, ding.
I don't believe you. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to make as big of a deal as you think. I think if they would have stuck with whatever they were going on last year, I mean, they did everything that they did last year with what's his name? The guy who's not even on their team anymore. It was a perpetual backup. I think he's the quarterback for the Broncos now. And yeah, Kirk Cousins.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Yes, him. I don't believe him. It was the team around him that really they did everything for him. Kirk Cousins will add, and he'll be a good quarterback for the Vikings, but it's everything else around them that makes them the better team. It's that defense that looks damn unstoppable at any time. They could come in and they just shut down teams. They've got lockdown corners in Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. They got big time safeties. They got big time everything on defense. And I'm still not sold on Dalvin Cook at running back, but a ton of people around the NFL and experts say that Dalvin Cook really is a great running back. If you want to own the statement about Kirk Cousins being the end-all be-all for the Vikings, I will be the guy who owns the statement that Dalvin Cook isn't going to be that great of a running back.
Ooh, you think he might have some struggles with injury staying on the field? Ooh.
I think I didn't believe in Dalvin Cook in the draft, and they made so much out of him after 3 games last year, just how, he's on pace to beat every single record. And,
Versus the Lions, that was a wrap.
I mean, he got hurt, and I'm not saying, that things would have been different, but I'm kind of am saying that I think if he would have stayed healthy, he wouldn't have been like the best running back in the league. I look at Dalvin Cook, and I look at the guys like Todd Gurley and Saquon Barkley, a rookie this year. I don't see Dalvin Cook as good as that.
Okay, I want to ask you this because it's kind of funny. Have you heard the news, the gossip regarding Jimmy Garoppolo out there in San Francisco
with the porn star?
Yeah, Kiara Mia. He's been singing, and there was a follow-up video with her and TMZ, and she kind of was flirty with the cameraman and saying, look, it was a fun date, he's sexy, and they had fun, and the dessert was awesome. So there's probably some fun activities going on. So I asked the question, I asked the supporters, I said, if Matthew Stafford, back in the day when he was prime bachelor, prior to making his big-time money, let's say he was
never a bachelor, he always had Kelly.
Listen to the question. Let's say he was parading around with Stormy Daniels or some Jenna Jameson or some of the former porn stars or things like that. Would you support him? And guess what? I was shocked, actually. I thought it would be more around 50-50. 70% of our supporters said they don't care. They'd support him. Yes, sir. And they don't care. A lot of people messaged us and said, why do you guys care about this? And I said, well, a quarterback is a representative of your organization. And a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo dating a porn star, you go, okay, it's going to draw attention. And I know he's young, and we could sit here and high five and be like, wow, what a lucky guy. But
lucky, dude. She's gross.
See, that's the thing I'd say, too, is that not that she's gross. It's just that, her being with so many other guys in that context for work is just a little unusual. And so is it a fling? Is it serious? I don't know if it's going to be serious, but I wouldn't want Stafford parading around town with an adult film star. It'd be cool behind the scenes if it was private, but out in public in the TMZ era with Twitter, I'd say I would have voted no.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want it, but if you win, I don't really care. That's all I really care about. If it does start affecting your play, then yeah, I want you to get your head in the game and out of those gigantic boobs.
Do you think it'll be a distraction for Garoppolo and the 49ers?
Just like Dalvin Cook, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is that good.
Oh, you're wrong. I just can't wait for that week 2 matchup. Oh, my God. All right, there's a great article to finish the podcast. And I agree with you, like I said. To recap, I do think Minnesota is the cream. You always got to look at Green Bay. But I do think the Lions are better than the Bears. They've shown in the past that they can get by them. The key contest will be on the road versus Minnesota, on the road versus Green Bay. You got to handle your business. Because at home, the Lions compete. They play well. They can handle a lot of games in the division. They've shown even under Jim Caldwell, they can hold their own in the division at home. It's when they go out on the road and they got to perform that they sometimes struggle. But Eric Coughlin at the Detroit News wrote an interesting article, and he writes, third-year Lions face critical year in development, and he talks about how important that third year is for an NFL player. And there's a good list of guys right now for the Detroit Lions. And I just want to get your sense of who do you think has to have a good season and who you think can continue to be a productive player. And here's some of the names that are expected to contribute. Third-year players: Taylor Decker, left tackle; Ashawn Robinson, defensive tackle; Graham Glasgow, center; Kerry Hyder, defensive end, coming off of an injury; Miles Killebrew, Joe Dahl, and Jake Rudock; Anthony Zettel, and Dwayne Washington, the running back. A good class. If you really look at it from afar and you just look at those names are expected to contribute one of the early classes for Bob Quinn. And you look at it and you go, wow, those names are, that's half a dozen names or more that could be contributing. I mean, look at Kerry Hyder, if he comes back, can be explosive. Ashawn Robinson has been nothing short of phenomenal. He took off in year 2. Taylor Decker struggled a little bit with injuries. Now in his third year, I do think is poised to help that running game. I like what I see across the board. Though the one guy that I probably would think that probably is going to be the odd man out, probably the one you can assume is Dwayne Washington. I don't think he's going to contribute much. I think he's going to fall by the wayside just because of the fact that what has taken so long for him to be productive. They added LeGarrette Blount. They added a youthful running back, so Dwayne Washington, I think, is going to fall by the wayside. I don't even think he might make the team. If you really look at it, when you look at it, you got Kerryon Johnson, you got LeGarrette Blount, and you got
Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick.
Well, probably can beat out Amir Abdullah, but Theo Riddick is the third guy. maybe you keep Amir Abdullah because he's cheap, but Dwayne Washington might be the odd man out, a former 7th-round pick, number 236 overall in his draft.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at guys who might be out, I would also point out Miles Killebrew. I know he's disappointed the coaches, and they're not really sure exactly where he fits in, especially with the emergence of Quandre Diggs last year.
Yeah, and last year, Tavon Wilson got hurt, and he didn't get more snaps. It wasn't as productive.
So, I mean, it's going to be tough for him. I think the one guy that, I mean, obviously those top round guys, the A'Shawn Robinson, Taylor Decker, you're going to expect them to contribute. I think one guy that I would expect more from this year and that I'd want to see more from is Anthony Zettel, because one of the biggest issues for the Lions is defensive line, and you want to see somebody come from deep in the draft and really give some production to this team. And I think Anthony Zettel, he has the tools, and it's just going to be what he can actually do in this new system.
He was a 6th-round pick in 2016. He had a great start to 2017. Because of the fact that Hyder got hurt, Zettel was featured predominantly, and he started off the year great, 4 sacks through the first 4 games, but his production slowed way down towards the end of the season, according to this article. He failed to record a sack in the last 5 games of the season. And if you combine him with Ziggy Ansah and Hyder, you might have the makings of something there, the makings of a defense. Obviously, with Matt Patricia, he's going to want to pressure the quarterback. When you look at those names, Ziggy Ansah, Zettel, and Hyder, you might be able to do some damage, at least cause some noise, some disruption for opposing quarterbacks.
And that's if you really want to talk about the Detroit Lions being successful, they need those guys to be successful. And it's not just Anthony Zettel, it is all those guys. It's Kerry Hyder coming back from injury and being able to give the production that he had at the beginning of the previous season, and Ziggy Ansah being able to overcome injuries and just being able to pressure a quarterback and not just let them stand around and let them pick apart the rest of our defense.
As we get closer to training camp, practices, preseason, are you getting more hopeful or less as the season approaches with the Detroit Lions? When you see what they got, when you kind of see what the news is regarding the depth chart, who they got, the schedule, Matthew Stafford, the running game, the defensive depth, are you more hopeful or less before we get out of here?
I'd love to say that I'm more hopeful, and I wouldn't say that I've decreased a ton, but I haven't heard anything super, super positive about this team, so I guess I'd get a little bit more nervous about what this Lions team is going to be.
It's like dipping, like,
you start seeing what everybody else is doing and what they're going to be like, and I know I think 8-8 is what I would at least expect, and that's what I want from this team at the bare minimum. And I know I said I think the highest that they can go is 11 wins. I might be lowering that down just a little bit. I think 10 wins might be highest you're going to be looking at this team.
Yeah, definitely. Admittedly, I have to go back and look at what I said. I think I said around 10-6, but I'm settling in maybe just a little bit less, 9-7, 8-8 for this.
Right. I'm not at the point where Vegas is saying they're going to be, where I think they're saying 6.5 wins for Lions, and I'm not at that point. I think they're better than that, and I expect more from them. So if they were to get to that point, man, why would God give us another bad team? Come on.
Yeah, 1 year. Just give us the first year. People have expectations because of the fact that Jim Caldwell won 9 games. Bob Quinn has publicly said that wasn't good enough, that we can compete, and the time is now. That's the phrase everybody's using. Dwayne Casey, Pistons coach, Red Wings, Detroit Lions, the time is now. We're all desperate. I don't think this city can handle a 4 or 5 win team, a collapse, even 6 wins. I think that people would be angry, and they might start saying, look, you let go of head coach Jim Caldwell, and he was successful. What's this guy doing, especially with the start that he had with the whole court situation from the past and all that. So it's super important, just like anything else, get off to a good start. Those first 5 games, if you're 1-4, it's going to be a nightmare to try and go 9-2 the rest of the way. Are you kidding me? That's going to be impossible. It's going to be, if they start 1-4, Jason, it's 5 games in. They got to go 9-2 to get to 10 wins the rest of the way.
I believe it. I can do it. They can do it.
The math, baby. Don't look at the math. Just go game by game, right? And hope and pray that the other squads this year get hurt and we can stay healthy. And like always, we'll preview every position along the way throughout training camp and preseason. Matthew Stafford's got a delivery. You know it, and everybody knows it. And we'll try to find our absolute best way to be fair and objective with the Lions. And just maybe keep your fingers crossed as to tease. The Detroit Tigers are not the only team I'm trying to cover. And the Detroit Lions are not the only team I'm trying to cover. So keep your fingers crossed that I may be podcast reporter extraordinaire.
Columbus Blue Jackets.
Ooh, I could be the, let's see.
Toledo Rockets.
I could be the Kerryon Johnson of the network, just up and coming rising star, about to hit about to fill a role and do his thing.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Hey, we'll see. Jason, awesome podcast. I enjoyed the time we spent. Thanks for coming in, brother.
Indeed. Until next week, hopefully. He's John. I'm Jason. Peace out.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.